I listen to Mets fans all over the world complaining on Twitter, complaining on social media that this team is falling apart. And this has always happened in the month of June. And I don't know why Met fans believe that the Mets are falling apart. Right now, they're 20 games over 500. Their win percentage is at .619. I know they're 5-5 in their last 10 games. They got Max Scherzer back, and you have Jacob deGrom lurking on his way back. And what I mean by lurking, he's been dominant in AAA. So you're finally going to get your 3 top-end pitchers back in this rotation where you're going to be at full force for the rest of the season after the All-Star break. Why is it that Met fans are jumping off a plank? Why? Because they're 2.5 games in front of the Atlanta Braves? We knew the Atlanta Braves were a lot better than they were in the beginning of the season. Everybody and their mother knew that this team was going to compete all the way to the end of the season. They're not even at full strength yet. And their pitching rotation finally woke up after the first month and a half where they were the worst rotation in baseball. And now their lineup has been dominant. Swanson's been unbelievable. Acuna's been where we expected. This team has been as good as any team in the last past month. So we knew that they were going to compete with the New York Mets all the way to the end. But Met fans are worried that this team is going to take over first place and the Mets are not going to catch them. This is not the same New York Met team. Relax. If you think Steve Cohen isn't going to clean up that bullpen before the trade deadline, you're sadly mistaken. If Steve Cohen and this management believes that this team is a competitive team for the playoffs and is going to compete for a World Series, they're going to do anything they possibly can that this team could win.
Take away the Astros sweep. They had the two-game series sweeps. Every other series, they've won 2 out of 3. It just seems like they've struggled more because of the way they've played. Against Cincinnati, they were all close games. Against the Rangers, there were a couple close games. Beyond the Astros just destroying them the way they did, that's been really it in terms of this massive downfall. The Braves are just hot right now, like the Mets were at the beginning of the season. So they're not going to keep up that pace forever. The Mets staying that hot, and the Braves aren't going to keep up that pace after the All-Star break either. So you have to believe it to some extent. Could they still win the division? Yeah, but the Mets are not going to fall apart so badly where they're going to miss out on a playoff spot like they did last year. That kind of collapse they had last year, and the Padres had one that was very similar, is something that doesn't happen every year. The Mets did it in 2007. Okay, that's understandable. There were a couple other teams. Detroit did it in 2006. Even though they made the World Series that year, they actually collapsed the division lead. Those kinds of things are rare. So for Mets fans to believe that this is going to be the same deja vu thing as last year, I don't really believe that. They're a much more well-rounded team. They're a much more deeper team. They're in a hitting slump right now collectively as a team. They're not scoring a lot of runs, fine. But that was bound to happen at some point. You have a lot of overperformers. Overperformers are overperformers for a reason. They're not all superstar players. And there's not 9 Pete Alonsos in that lineup. Those guys are bound to hit a little bit of a slump eventually, and it just happen to be all at once. And maybe they all get back hot all at once. Maybe the All-Star break helps them. Stop overreacting right now. Just because the Braves are playing hot right now, and they've been the best team in baseball the last 2 months outside of the Yankees.
I think with the Mets, they need another power bat in the middle of the lineup. They need to protect Pete Alonso. They haven't done a very good job with that. Lindor has not been the guy that everybody expected him to be. They paid him a lot of money, $324 million a year and a half ago. Last year, he had an offseason. This year, he started off red hot, and he's just not the same player that he was in Cleveland. We expected this. The Cleveland Indians division is not what you call an outbreak of talent in that division. Kansas City won a World Series when he was there.
Yeah, they were good at the start. Then it shifted over to the Twins, kind of, and now it shifted over to what's supposed to be the White Sox, but even they're bad this year.
American League Central is not a good division. So going to the National League East, which is one of the more talented divisions it's always been, we knew that he was going to have a problem figuring things out in the National League, being that he was in the American League his whole career. So I don't know what's going on with Francisco Lindor. Hopefully he figures it out, because we were talking about him making the All-Star team and being a starter as the shortstop. Now he's not even going to make the All-Star team. Pete Alonso's having a great year. He's in a slump right now. And when you're not protecting him, it makes other pitchers know that we pitch around him, we're going to be able to beat this team. And that's what's going on right now. That's why Cincinnati won a game. The Marlins is beating them. They don't have anybody protecting him. So they might need to reach out to the Pittsburgh Pirates that are not a good team this year and try to get one of their big bats in that lineup. Kansas City or Oakland that have players that might fit in this lineup that can help the Mets out moving forward in the second half of the season. So I don't know what the Met fans are so worried about, but I think the Met fans need to look at the big picture here. Before the All-Star break, they're at 52-32. They're 20 games over 500. If they win 8 more games before the All-Star break, they could be at 60 wins. And they could go on a streak. We've seen it. They're not the Yankees, But who is? I don't even know if the Yankees are human. They're a machine. I know Met fans are so upset that finally the Mets are having a good year and the Yankees are outshining them. Who cares? Because in the long run, both teams could make the playoffs and both could be fighting for a World Series. I think the Mets are in a very good position. And throughout the National League, the only teams they have to worry about is the Braves, Milwaukee, and the Dodgers, and maybe San Diego.
Yeah, I was going to say, they got a lot of good pitching.
Maybe San Diego. Yeah. I don't think they have to fear St. Louis. They don't have to fear San Francisco, and they don't have to fear Philadelphia. So they're going to make the playoffs. 6 teams make the playoffs, guys. We just named Atlanta, Milwaukee, LA, and San Diego. The Mets would be the 4th seed. They're still going to have a chance to compete in the playoffs. They don't want to play in the play-in game. Nobody does, because when you're playing those play-in games, nothing is guaranteed. Ask the Yankees. All they had to do last year was win their last 4 games. They lost one of them, and they went into a wild card game with the Boston Red Sox in Fenway, and they lost in Fenway. They got killed in Fenway. You do not want to go into that play-in game. But again, the Mets have 2 pitchers, if healthy, can go into those play-in games and dominate. Shut down rosters. Jacob deGrom has had 2 AAA starts so far. He's not given up a hit. He's struck out, I think, 9 batters in 2 innings. That's how dominant Jacob deGrom is. And when he comes back to the league, he's going to be as dominant. This guy is as unhittable as any pitcher in baseball. And the Mets better be opening up their checkbook next year. Because if he's 100% healthy, he's going to want Max Scherzer money. And maybe the Mets don't pay him. Well, they'd be stupid not to. Because there'll be somebody out there in the league that will pay him. If you're a Met fan right now, you should be very excited about what your team is doing. Give or take what they have done in the last 2 weeks. They're not hitting. I think they'll figure things out. As far as the Yankees are concerned, if you look at this team right now, you are a week and a half away from the All-Star break. The Yankees, in the hardest division in baseball, the second place team is 15 and a half games behind the New York Yankees before the All-Star break. What does that tell you about the Yankees? Everything Brian Cashman did in the offseason made sense. They re-signed Aaron Boone, where everybody said get rid of him. Right now, he's manager of the year. Then they offered Aaron Judge $215 million. They should have given him more. Aaron Judge, 30 home runs, batting .287. He's been as dominant of a hitter as any player in baseball. Giancarlo Stanton has stayed healthy practically the whole season, something we haven't seen in a while. He's got 21 home runs and 57 RBIs before the All-Star break. Both guys are starters in the All-Star game. You look at this rotation is the best rotation in the majors. And I'm not talking about by a couple of points. Even with some of these pitchers like Cortez that have taken a couple of steps back, and Tyone, who didn't pitch well to his last start, and Garrett Cole, who is still, everybody says, he's not the same pitcher with the Yankees. Garrett Cole is 7-2 and has a 2.99 ERA, and his whip is almost under 1. He's still one of the more dominant pitchers in baseball. I don't know what anybody, calling him Kermit the Frog. What is wrong with you people? And Luis Severino coming back from those major injuries and playing the way he has, remarkable. They have the best closer in baseball. They have the best bullpen in baseball. They have the best lineup in baseball. They have the best power in baseball. The only thing they don't lead the league in is batting average, which they're in the top 12 in batting average. They bring in a Carpenter in free agency who has been the hottest hitter in baseball. By the way, all you Brian Cashman haters, everything Brian Cashman has done in the last 2 years at the trade deadline and in the offseason has worked. But he's weighed out his welcome. He shouldn't be a GM anymore. I think he's washed up. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Brian Cashman deserves an apology. They have the best home record in baseball. They have one of the best away records in baseball. They have been dominant everywhere they've gone. Do you know that if the Yankees have the lead after the 5th inning, they've lost 1 game? What does that tell you about their bullpen? That tells you their bullpen is as dominant as any bullpen we've seen since the Yankees in 1998.
Plus 183 run differential this year. The only team that's close to that right now is the Dodgers, and they're plus 147. They're in second. That is how insane the Yankees have been at home runs, RBIs, on-base percentage, and pitching. If you have a stat like that, where you've only lost 1 game leading after 5 innings, how sustainable is that? I don't know, but that is something that is unheard of. And how great of a job Aaron Boone has done at managing those young players and those new players that have come into the team.
Get rid of him. He's horrible. He's the worst manager in baseball. Meanwhile, Aaron Boone would be the first manager in baseball history in his first 5 years to have 3 100-win seasons, and he's on his way to another 100-win season. That just tells you how good of a manager he's been with no management experience. By the way, Joe Girardi, which all you Yankee fans did not want to get rid of, is now not the manager of the Philadelphia Phillies. And by the way, ever since he was fired, they're one of the best teams in the National League.
And they'll still find a way to collapse, but nevertheless.
So what does that tell you?
That's the Phillies' problem more than anything else.
How about Trevino? The second best catcher in the American League. He comes on the scrap heap in a little trade with the Texas Rangers. I'm sure Texas is jumping off a cliff right now. He fits the Yankees culture, and he's done nothing but hit and play defense. He's one of the best catchers in baseball right now.
Their front office has never been the brightest, the Rangers, so not the first time, certainly won't be the last. But even overcoming all the injuries that they had in their bullpen, they still have enough of it with the veteran depth and now just new guys coming through. Clark Schmidt's had a big role on this team. A guy that was supposed to be a starter now is at a big role out of the bullpen. Albert Abreu. How about somebody like Wandy Peralta, a veteran guy that's been a great lefty for them? They just find these guys to make it work. And Aaron Boone deserves a lot of credit for that, the way he's been able to make that bullpen together. He's been criticized in the past for overusing the star pieces of that bullpen, and he's done a great job now doing the new pieces, making it work.
It's so funny when you look at what Yankee fans have said all over social media about Aaron Boone and Brian Cashman, that these guys should be gone, the Yankees should start over. Then all of a sudden, they're having record-breaking seasons. This bullpen has been record-breaking. This is the best bullpen in the first half the Yankees have ever had. You're talking about the greatest closer of all time. 96, when they had Wetland and Mariano Rivera and Nelson and Stanton in that bullpen. That bullpen is not even close to this bullpen. You're talking about Holmes. Holmes hasn't given up a hit, and he's only walked 5 guys the whole season. I'll say it again about Brian Cashman. He finds players. Carpenter found him off the scrap heap. There was a lot of other teams interested in him, but he wanted to be a Yankee. The Yankees signed him. He's been nothing but hot for the Yankees.
He was out of baseball for 3 years, and they rebirthed him.
9 home runs. He's batting over 300, and he plays multiple positions. So everything the Yankees have done this year has hit every single point. And if the Yankees continue doing what they're doing, they could break the win record in Major League history, which is 117, and they're on their way.